Welcome to Pathways to Greatness, where we explore the journeys of exceptional individuals who have achieved remarkable success in their fields. Whether you're an aspiring athlete, a business leader, or simply someone striving to reach your full potential, this podcast is your guide to unlocking the greatness within you. Join us as we dive into inspiring stories, practical strategies, and the mindset shifts that can transform your path to greatness. Let's embark on this journey together. Welcome back to the Pathways to Greatness podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Forrester. And on today's episode, I have Dom Damasky. And he and I have known one another for probably 5 years now. And he's the founder of Motivation Champs. And when you hear the name Motivation Champs, that should give you a good description of who he is and what his goal in life is. And that's to motivate others. What you don't know is he's a book publisher. And as many of you know, and we talk about it in the episode, I wrote a book back in 2020. And what is so important about writing a book is telling your story and leaving an impact on at least one person. But the goal is just one person. And as he talks about, if you've ever thought about writing a book, the big question that he always asks is why, and really wants to get to the bottom of what that looks like. And through the conversation, we uncover quite a few really good gems of wisdom. And as he says, he's a diamond miner as a book publisher. So he's looking for that diamond in the rough. Some are easy to see, some take a lot of work to find, but everybody has a diamond in them. And so I encourage you to really listen and focus on what Dom has to say. And if you've ever thought about writing a book, putting pen to paper, is to give Dom a call to find out what that why is for you and how he might be able to help you. And without further ado, Dom Damasky. Dom Damasky, we are finally recording one another. We've just had a really fun 15-minute conversation before we hopped on, but thank you for saying yes to coming on today.
Thank you, my friend. I could talk to you all day.
Yeah, this is fun. This is a lot of fun. So before we get into the nitty gritty, I always like to play a game of Would You Rather. You ready?
Bring it on.
Okay. Would you rather freeze time or go back in time?
Man, that's tough. All right, I'll go back in time.
Okay. Why so?
Well, it's sappy, but you got me on it. So I would just go back in time and hug my mom.
I love it. I love
it.
Absolutely
That's what I'll start with.
Would you rather live without music or TV?
Jeez. I could go without TV.
Okay.
I debate it once in a while too. Like, is it time?
Yeah. Are you a new TV series guy or a movie guy?
Sometimes I'll go watch movies just to learn. Me and my wife spend a lot of time. We'll binge watch. She's better at binge watching than me. But so the new series, what's the new series we should watch? So we do a lot of that.
Yeah. Have you watched Bad Monkey on Apple?
No.
It's really good. So it's Vince Vaughn's new, it's a dramedy murder mystery concept. And I'm a huge Vince Vaughn fan. And we were fortunate enough, we got to meet him this past summer. His daughter played on a volleyball team that my daughter's team was up against, and he was there. And so we were all oohing and on over Vince Vaughn, our generation. And then all the young kids were oohing and on because Steph Curry was there. And I wouldn't have noticed Steph Curry probably at all. I mean, I would have, but I don't watch much NBA. Yeah. But as soon as you see Vince Vaughn, it's Vince Vaughn. I mean, that's our guy. We've grown up together. And it was really cool. And I'll tell everybody, he's the same in person as he is on camera. He's a really cool, wonderful guy. Like, just very nice. Well, just jokes, but super welcoming to the fans. Like, he gets it. And you could tell he's, there gets a point where it's like, I'm trying to eat with my family, but he's still very inviting, easy to walk up to, and just a really good dude.
Yeah, that's neat.
Okay. So what music do you like to listen to if you're going to give up TV?
Well, number one, I grew up with like gangster rap and stuff. So come on, I'm cool as can be. But I would go with Billy Joel.
Okay. Is there a particular Billy Joel song?
Like all of them. So I'm always learning new Billy Joel songs. Like I love like the classics. Oh, they're all classics, but then you'll find one like Vienna or something like that. And this Vienna song, I think it's about like life going too fast and slowing it down. And so sometimes those songs hit you at a certain time in your life, and you're like, why am I rushing? Why am I rushing with so many things? Let's slow this down. So that's one I like right now.
Oh, that's really cool. An odd story is my son's like an old soul. Like he loves Billy Joel. And he's always, even when he was younger, he first got into Queen, and then, with Guardians of the Galaxy, he got exposed to a lot of different artists that, I'm not a huge music guy, so I don't know musicians, but he loves music. And then he has his own playlist that sometimes he'll play in the car, and Billy Joel pops up. And he was even telling my daughter, who's 14, he's only 16, about how great Billy Joel is.
I watch your son's football escapades all the time, so I want to be his agent someday. I'm not an agent, but if I was, I'd pick him.
Yeah.
Seems to work hard.
Yep, he's awesome. I can dote on my kids forever, so which is good. Okay, so would you rather have pizza or tacos?
Jeez, pizza.
What kind?
Well, one, the pizza at the Pittsburgh Steeler games, caliente, it's always great. But then I also like that New York style with the crisp bottom, those big slices, those oversized slices. You can't go wrong with that.
Yep. Do you have any toppings that you prefer?
Toppings, I keep it simple. I will try them, but I'm a pepperoni guy. My wife gets mad at me. She's like, pepperoni again? I'm like, come on.
Hey, you like what you like.
Simple guy.
Okay. All right. So last question, which is not a would you rather. If you came with a warning label, what would it say?
Wakes up in the morning intense.
Okay, so
loud. Others might say loud, but I'll get, like I do feel like I try to live a life of where I'm happy to start the day, and I feel like at the end of the day I gave it my best. So when the day starts, I probably get shot out of bed most time and have an intensity to me.
Sure. Would you say that some mornings that's a choice?
Yeah. It's also something you learn and develop, right? We've all had our struggles and our adversities, and you have to, any one of them could break you. I guarantee there's listeners out here going through a lot right now, listening to your show. They're struggling, but they have what it takes to get through it. And I think that's knowing that, and knowing they've done it before, and knowing they've survived 100 days, 100% of their tough days up to that point, I think. So yeah, on those tough days when you get out of bed and stub your toe and know that you already have a phone full of emails of people mad at you and places to go where people are mad at you, I think you can still choose to have a pretty good day.
Yeah, and I like what you said when you use the word choose, that it's intentionality, it's discipline, it's knowing that, okay, already I don't feel good, but I've got to make a choice because nobody else really cares.
Right.
So
me and my dad were just talking about this. My son's in college now, and he goes to Temple in Philadelphia. And my dad's been in business 50 some years as a landscaper, and we were talking about. He mentioned one day that business is unforgiving, and so is life. So are sports for the people you work with. Nobody cares, right? Because they have things going on in their lives. So you still got to get through. You still got to make the most of it. You still have to show up and get through the day and give it your best. And if you don't do those things, the next guy up on the bench is going to do it. The person, when you quit that job, the person that was waiting for that position, they're going to do it. So you just have to just get through it.
Yeah, I had a guest on towards the beginning of when I started the podcast, Brittany Richmond. I don't know if you know her, but she was talking about anxiety, and that she said something very profound that I've used and transferred into different areas of my life, is that my anxiety is not your problem.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really powerful, because so many people are like, okay, how do you handle somebody who's living with anxiety and and experiencing that. And then she's like, I've got to take ownership of that, because my husband and my friends and everybody around me, I can't have them feeling like they're walking on eggshells all the time, because I've got different flare-ups of my anxiety. So she's like, how do I manage it?
Yeah.
And then if you can't deal with how I manage it, that's a whole different conversation, but it's not your problem. It's my issue that I need to deal with. And I think about that when my head hurts, when my back hurts, when, I'm just not at my best that day, is that my kids don't care. They just need me to be there and show up as dad and be understanding and compassionate. And so that's really helped me manage some of that.
That's a great one.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, everybody, this is Dom Damasky, and we met through a bunch of mutual friends that I didn't really realize at first, all the different people that we knew. And he is the founder of Motivation Champs, which is a book publishing company. And he also has a lot of different escapades that he's does and goes on. And so he's a really great person to talk to. And so I wanted to bring him on today because of, just like everybody else, is for him to share some of his tactics. And Dom, I started Pathways to Greatness back in 2023 for the sole purpose to share that everybody has a different definition of greatness. And most importantly, everybody has a different pathway that they're on to achieve what their version of greatness is. And people like you can share insights and strategies and tactics that will help other people on their own pathway, because then they can transfer those skills to themselves. And ultimately, my goal of this podcast is to encourage people to not quit, just to persevere, keep pushing. You said this earlier, is that we've all survived 100% of those bad days that we didn't think we could, but we're here, we're still here. So we survived those. So with all that being said, what would you say your definition of greatness is?
When you said that, I started thinking about the definition of success, like a Webster's guy, or if I was out Webster's dictionary, the achievement of a desired aim or purpose. And so that's where I would start on this. So you'd say, well, what is great? Well, I would just elevate that, because for me, I would go back to success, the achievement of a desired aim or purpose. Meaning, for me and you, it's different. For maybe it's the same exact thing. Be a great dad, and provide, and a good husband, whatever. But I'm suggesting that for me, to be happy, to live a life where I think I'm free, to live a life where I can make decisions, to sometimes, sure, I want to support my family, but there's times I remember me and my dad rode our bikes to Washington, D.C. a few years ago. And I live in Pittsburgh, so that's like, let's say we moved about 50 miles down the road, and we rode about 210 miles. And the Potomac flooded at the time, and the whole trip was full of detours and mud and popped tires and everything like that. And so there were times where we were like pushing our bikes along the Antietam battlefield and on these major highways, and it's just me and my dad. And like I tend to wear these V-necks, like you might see under here, like these oversized white T-shirts. So here I am pushing my bike along these highways, tractor trailer trucks coming by. I only have a backpack. And I was thinking, man, this is it. I'm there with my dad. The people passing by are probably thinking, this guy, what's these two's problems? Get off the road. What are they doing? They're idiots. But to me, that was success. That was happiness. That was everything. And so I always look at my definition, or how I view things. Well, at the end of the day, did you go to sleep fulfilled? Did you go to sleep happy? Did you? Then you're successful. So for somebody, and I have no, I'm going to double down here. If you want to make $10 billion, good for you. If you want to work on Wall Street, if you want to write books, if you want to work on the assembly line, whatever it is that makes you happy, that's fine. And so that's the world I live in. And so that's what I strive for.
That's awesome. And I liked the story that you were saying. One of the things that triggered were the flood of the river, the detours, the challenges, the time that you had to walk your bike through the Antietam battlefield. Is sometimes obstacles are there to force you to slow down, to recognize the moment that you're in. Yeah. And think about it. If you just, the two of you beelined it for 210 miles, you had no problems, no issues, and all you did, you stopped to go to the bathroom. Like, what parts of that trip would you remember?
Yeah.
Many times I don't remember if a trip went perfect from A to B. You just get home and go, oh, that was fun.
Yeah.
But it's the challenges. It's if something was cold, if you had a delay.
Mm-hmm. We drove across the state of Pennsylvania recently to pick up my son at school and bring him home for a weekend, whatever. And I took my daughter to Philadelphia to see the campus for the first time. And as you go across Pennsylvania in the fall right now over the mountains, the leaves are changing. And I grew up in like a family landscape business and never appreciated the leaves, and I missed an opportunity. I can tell you that. For my dad would have loved if I looked at the leaves for all those years, and like he'd be out in the woods like spraying trees with water and touching the leaves like this, and we'd wonder like, is this guy crazy? And now crossing the state, last week, looking at those leaves, I would stop. My daughter would be doing something. I'd say, Maddie, I'm about to give you the present. I'm about to give you the present. What is that? What's the gift? And I was speaking of the book, The Present, but like that moment, just pause and look at the leaves and the glow and the yellows and the oranges and the reds. That was the present. And I regrettably missed that a lot of years, but I'm trying to get better at that with all things, but the leaves too.
Yeah, and you bring up a really good point. I hope everybody heard it. And there were several things in there. One is pay attention to what's around you, because there's beauty all around you that we miss. And it's always, for me, it's the more simple it is, usually the prettier that it is and the more beauty that there is. The other part is it's never too late. We can regret missing that opportunity, but we still got, I've got another 50 years in me. I'm 51 and I'm not getting out of here anytime soon. And so if we feel like it's a time that the time past was missed and we regretted it, then take advantage of it today.
Yes, for sure. And I to go in the same route, like I had a restaurant when I was in my 20s. I went broke, lost it all. And I spent about 20 years in the corporate world, 15 years in the corporate world between I started writing books and stuff. And I wanted to get back to entrepreneurship. I had this idea where I was going with Motivation Champs, but I wasn't there yet. And so I didn't want to, I knew, but it took years and years and years, and maybe it wasn't going to happen. Maybe I wasn't going to get back, but I just wanted to live in a world where 20 years from now, like you're saying, that I didn't regret on my deathbed. Yeah, I wish I would have tried, because I did fail the first time. I failed miserably as a restaurateur. So maybe I was scared. Maybe I wasn't meant to do it. And so that was probably always weighing on me too. But I didn't want to be on my deathbed someday and say, I wish I would have tried that again. I wish I would have went for it. I wish I would have helped people this way. And so that's how I ended up where I'm at now.
What were some of those things in that first failure, since you use that word, that helped prepare you better for Motivation Champs?
One, you learn a lot about yourself and you learn a lot about business, but I'll be specific because I love talking about business as well. One, I was underfinanced. So I went into something underfinanced. I went into something I believed that I could always work harder. I could work harder. I could work longer. And so I did. I worked later in the night. At one point while I had a restaurant, I was a referee. I ref basketball. I delivered newspapers, and my restaurant was still open like 12 hours a day or whatever it was. But you would and then I would say, oh, well, let's stay open a little longer. Let's open earlier. Let's do catering. So sometimes, no matter how hard you work, maybe that wasn't your door. So you could keep, trying to jam it in there or kick your way through it. But I think for me, that sometimes moving on is courage as well. It just wasn't meant for me. And then once you experience it a little, I realized that for me, being away on the weekends, on the nights, and how many birthday parties and things I missed like that, just wasn't for me. So I think why I say that is sometimes we're so passionate about something. I was passionate about it. but it wasn't the right. I was under financed. It didn't work. Roads under construction for a million reasons. Most of them my fault. But you have to understand that there could be a different path. And so as I went on for my own, like the second time, I paid off a lot of debt. I looked at benchmarks and metrics. How many clients did I have? How many streams of income were coming in? How many things did I pay off that, okay, now I don't need to make the same. Like when I started in the restaurant business, I said, oh, I need to pay myself X amount a week. What? I had no grace. Where this time I had grace. And so hopefully the results have been different and hope they continue to be.
Yeah, and it sounds like one of the big lessons that I'm picking up is self-awareness for sure. So you recognize challenges within yourself. The other thing that you said that I want to make sure that the audience heard is it takes courage to walk away from something when you've determined that this is not the right step. It's not that you walked away when it got hard. You walked away when you said, okay, I was ill prepared. I wasn't ready for this. And now it's impacting me in places that I don't want it to impact. And that sounds like at home.
Yeah. You start to become, maybe to try to stay in business, maybe I was becoming a person that I didn't want to become, like owing too much or taking shortcuts or whatever that would be. And, that's not really who I am. You mentioned, I have some friends, Mike Manick and Sal Greca. They wrote this book, The 5 L's. And the L's are, if you have these 5 L's, they consider you have a balanced life. And I believe they're love, laughter, labor, leisure. And the final one, to your point, is leave. And they say that sometimes you have to be able to walk away from things. And that's why the final L is leave. Hey, and if you have all these other things, you'll end up being all right.
Yeah. And that's the struggle I make. And I know so many other people make is when to leave. Like, when am I giving up? And what if I would have just gone one more day? Would I've turned the corner? And then you get to the point where you're almost like wishing yourself to death. And I think that's where you take off the emotion lens and you have to start looking at things objectively. And then that's when you ask for help. You ask for expertise to say, I need to know what you see in this business. If it's time, find somebody that is not emotionally attached to the situation to help you gain some guidance and some clarity.
That's a good one. And it coming from a motivational world where you are as a coach, as somebody who studies the greats of inspiration and motivation, there is a fine line between like, well, maybe I could persist forever and knock down every wall. And so I think sometimes I would admit that same struggle, like, well, I can't quit. I can't stop. Well, maybe you should have 2 years ago. Right? So I don't know. Yeah. Go on.
It's that poker's mentality is I'm pot committed. I can't give up now. Well, you can, and just make sure that you're making the right decision and see, like you said, is if you can learn from it, then it wasn't wasted time.
Yeah. Yeah. And so many people dance around this word failure and you can't say it, or it is, or it isn't, however you want to say it, as long as you learned from it, I think it's all right.
Yeah. It's a learning opportunity. So I want you to tell the audience a little bit of your story that brought, and you alluded to a little bit of where you got to start Motivation Champs, because I want people to hear what you do and then get into the why, because, as many of the listeners know, I wrote a book and I encourage everyone to write a book. I think it's just an essential part of life that you should take that task on and have somebody like Dom help you get through it. So without me continuing to ramble, share a little bit more about some of the specifics that brought you into Motivation Champs, and then what is Motivation Champs?
Okay. As you've heard already, I have been pretty clear that I've had a few setbacks in life, whatever it may be, from going broke in business to maybe even getting punched in the face when I was a young guy. Those stuff happens. So after I went out of business in the restaurant business, I started to become a student of inspiration. I had been given the gift of an Og Mandino book like years and years ago, The World's Greatest Salesman. And so I read it and understood it. in one of the scrolls is I must persist until I succeed. It's funny we're talking about that. So there's 10 scrolls at the end of this Og Mandino book, and if you do these 10 scrolls, you'll be able to get through anything and have a good life. When I fell in business, as I'm struggling, some days just wanting to sit on the curb and cry, or back in behind the restaurant thinking, how am I even going to pay to get these grease traps emptied, that are overflowing? Sometimes things are bad, and or when I'm refinancing cars and riding my bike to the restaurant, cause that's how low things were. But I start reading these Dale Carnegie's, Norman Vincent Peale's, Jeffrey Gitomer's, all the greats, Joel Osteen, so many of, even the Bible. I'm reading all of them and studying the lessons, the teachings. I start to think I have something to say. Now, mine's more about getting beat up or going broke or getting cut from the team, but I think that I have something to say. I have no idea how to do it. So I get a job. I sold Yellow Pages. That was my first job out of the restaurant. Yeah, this is a blast to the past here. Yellow Page ads. That was like the first person that would hire me. I drove 70 miles one way every day to work and sold Yellow Page ads. They were big on writing your goals. And one of the first I would write, like, pay off produce, pay Mr. Malaberti, sorry, Mr. Malaberti, pay Mr. Malaberti $5,000 for like fruit and things like that. So I would start writing my goals in these little notebooks and start accomplishing them. And the Yellow Pages, they were big on writing your goals. So I'd write them in these books. Then all of a sudden I'd start writing little stories, little notes, little anecdotes. And all of a sudden I wrote first book on the front of it. And that's how the first book came. But I had no idea what I was doing. Like Jeff said, find somebody that can help you or ease the pain, or try it on your own. But no, it's going to take some time. So it took me 7 years to write my first book. And I was not good at it. I made a million errors. I signed all my rights away. It was underdeveloped, underpublished, badly written. I mean, everything wrong that you could do, I did. And that's, this guy's an idiot. Yeah, okay. Well, that is my foray into writing books. But as I started to promote it, as I started to get on stages, people would say, hey, I have a story, or how could you help me? Tell me about how you did it. Well, do the opposite of what I did. And so that was me starting to be on stages and connect with more people. I start realizing, hey, Jeff Forrester has a story. This person has a story. Vicky Hagee has a story. And rather than it being about me, and this is interesting because like me and you have known each other for years. We've talked, we've had email exchanges, we've been on the phone. Never have either of us said, hey, let's do this, because neither of us are huge self-promoters. So same with the business, I started thinking, how can I help other people? Other people have a story. How can I help? If I believe that the world could be a better place, if I want to help more people, if I believe 20 years from now, maybe people will hold the door open for each other. Maybe there will be less pages and posts about everybody hating each other. Well, maybe I should put out more content. I can only do so much. Not everybody's going to resonate with a dopey guy from Pittsburgh story. Maybe they want to hear about Shar Murphy. Maybe they want to hear about Harry Spate. Maybe they want to hear about Sarika Bakata. All these people from different walks of life. And if I could help them share their story, well, then maybe we could impact a lot more people. And that's really the roots of Motivation Champs and what I do as a storyteller. It's really whether it's, you don't have to work with me, you work with whoever, but like Jeff said, share that story. And I help people, the business helps people develop and share their stories. So if they want to become podcasters, their message is tighter. If they want to become authors that then go speak on stages, that their message is more concise, that it's direct, and people know, okay, this guy talks about, like our dear friend John Gardina, faith, family, fitness, freedom. His pillars are so clear that from a mile away, this is what this guy talks about. I like him. because I know what I'm getting from John Gardina, faith, family, freedom, fitness every time I see him. So that's, I love a clear message. And so now to sidebar. So it's about seeing somebody out there that has a story. I like to say, if I was really pitching, that I'm a diamond miner. And so I see people that they might not even know. They might be stuck in the dirt. Some diamonds are clear as can be. Everybody can see it from a mile away. Some need brushed off. Some need polished and buffed and things like that. Some you got to dig another 100 feet to find. And so as a business, as a storyteller, Motivation Champs, we find diamonds and then help them shine bright.
I love that. I really do. And because it's you serving other people, then in turns help them step into what their gift is to serve others. So it's like it's that chain that continues to build upon one another. And I hope everybody heard you say of just having to look at who you are and what you think your purpose and what you can do to leverage the strengths that you have. And sometimes they come in random places. Like you may not have ever thought of, okay, well, I want to write a book, but then how in the world did I become a publisher? It's not.
Right.
It's where it seems like a logical leap. It's not really a logical leap because I wrote a book and I do not want to be a book publisher.
Yeah. So that's it. And for me, it was the people coming up to me and asking for help and one, we already mentioned, like, I love the business of things, but sitting there and knowing that I made so many mistakes and seeing this is such a precious time. Like when you wrote that first book, you're so proud of it and you gave it your all. And I think that moment deserves, what would we say? It deserves care, to be handled with care and treated delicately. And so there's so many people out there feeding on people's hopes and dreams. And so I choose to be more direct, more developmental, more there's no catch. So many times out there's a catch. There's a seedy underworld of what's going on. Everything with us is out in the open, and you can see all the authors, and they can talk about how we develop everything. And so it's just try to be above board so that the authors don't make the same mistakes I made and sell their rights and all of a sudden something that should be so special to them. Like this first book that I wrote that I had to retire. It's over there. It's not even on screen. I retired it because it wasn't good enough. And you get that one chance. I wish somebody would have said, hey, do you really want to say this? Maybe you should develop this a little more. Maybe you told me you wanted to speak on stages, but then you have these kind of thoughts on this. It's really not appropriate. And sometimes that's a tough conversation to have. And so if somebody thinks their book's perfect as is, I'm probably not the person for them, right? Because I would think it's an opportunity to develop. Let's look at it and see. Let's look at every word, every line, the cadence, and see, is this really how you wanted to say it? Take another month and let's get it so 5 years from now you're proud of it, not just that day when you push send or publish.
Yeah, and that's the power of wanting to help people where we once were. And Roy Vaden, Ed Milet has made that phrase popular, at least for me, is that you help the people who you once were. And we all needed that person at some point in our lives to help us and just say, look, you're not ready. It's not even, I don't think you're ready. It's, you're not ready for what you're looking to accomplish, looking to achieve. You can get there. It's just, you're not ready yet. And even John Maxwell, I was listening to an interview with him, and he's like, and he's written hundreds of books, and he's like, my first book was garbage. But you have to have that first book to get to the hundreds. Mm-hmm. There's got to be that learning process. And what's great about what Dom's sharing And this pertains to the coaching world or just finding mentors, is finding people that can help ease the pain of doing something that you've never done before and leaning into that. So one of the questions that I wrote down, I normally don't go with questions, but I've had some because of the unique career that you're in. Why do you think people should tell their story?
Well, I'll go with a Maya Angelou quote. There is no greater agony than the untold story inside of you. So, number one, that. Like, just your journey, your story is so unique. 1 in 8 billion people on the planet. Yours is different than everybody else's. But I would challenge back to anybody that wants to share their story. I would ask them why. Why? And so I am not one that just says, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. I would say, why? Why do you want to do it? Well, I think I could help somebody. Okay, tell me more. I think if I got this, I don't want people to go through the same kind of thing that I went through. This person struggled with this and now has a plan to help others avoid that. Okay, tell me. And so for me, that's thinking that you could impact one life, that you could make one life better. And then what if it's 2? What if it's 3? What if it's 10? What if it's 1,000,000? So that's why you should share your story. But you should be able to answer that question, why? If you say, I want to get rich, well, then go work on Wall Street. I would think that's a quicker path to get rich. You may get rich. I know people that sold millions of books. You may get rich doing it, but that's not what, like there's other paths. If you're saying, hey, I want to help people, this is a perfect path for you. I have this here. This could help you. I have multiple authors, but one in particular that gives basically all his books away out of the trunk of his car. And it's Brett Neal, Have a Grand and Glorious Day. First book, little pocket book, a book of faith and encouragement and just trying to get people on the right path. He has them in the back of his car all the time. It's like a pocket-sized book, just wants people to have a grand and glorious day. And so he wants to help people. That's an honorable goal. So if you say, I want to be famous, well, there's probably better ways to be famous. But if you said, I want to help people, I think what I've been through, my experiences, my knowledge could help other people. If that's the case, I don't think there's a better way.
Yeah, I agree 100% because it leaves your legacy that lives generationally, even beyond when you've been forgotten. Now, with the age of all these online bookstores, you never know who is going to randomly stumble upon your book and buy it, and it helps. And you'll never know that it helped them, but it helped them. And that's when you were talking, I was thinking the same thing, is you cannot write a book, or you should not write a book for vain intentions, because there's so many opportunities that you help people that you'll never know about, ever.
100%. And a lot of those people too, this is for my future authors that are listening right now. A lot of people will read your book and never tell you. A lot of people will read your book, see your social media posts, be impacted by it, look forward to them, enjoy them, appreciate them. And then 10 years from now, they'll walk up to you and you'll never expect it. And they'll say, hey, Jeff, I read your book. Hey, Jeff, your post about this, your podcast with Greg Weinberg, who, that was the one. And you're like, whoa, that was 5 years ago. And then that's meant something to them. So it's a unique opportunity when you get out and share your story. And I will say, rewind for a minute. I am a believer in sharing your story however you do it. I believe video is a great way. I believe podcasting is a great way. So I don't exclusively believe that writing books is the only way. I think you start to realize this is the best form for me to share my story. And then sometimes once you do it, you'll realize, oh, I can share it all. Like now, Jeff's a podcaster. Did you write first or have a show, Jeff? First, Jeff.
I wrote first.
Okay. So he shares his book, shares the message via book, and then he starts to realize, oh, I can use my voice too and get out to people that maybe don't necessarily read, but you're sharing the same message. And then when you're out sharing your message via podcast, like I like to be a guest on podcast, maybe somebody hears this message today and says, I'm going to go check out Dominick Domasky or Motivation Champs or something. It's a unique opportunity. So Jeff, thank you for that.
Yeah, no. And what I liked about that is that, again, you just don't know where the impact's going to come and what the purpose is. And what I want to celebrate you, because I wrote this down and I hadn't gotten a chance, so this was a great transition of thank you for always being intentional and letting me know. I will get these random text messages from Dom about whatever, some message that I put out. And again, you don't have to always hit the like button. You don't have to do something, but I appreciate you for taking the time to go beyond the like button or even making a comment on a social post about something that I had put up, or just keep going. I love the message. Just it's important for us to, we often complain that nobody gives us feedback, but how often are we reaching out to other people? I had a gentleman on my podcast not long ago, Jim Johnson, and it was a great conversation. And one of the things that he talked about is he and some friends challenged one another to try to send video messages, like text messages, to 3 to 5 friends a day. That's a big task. And I was like thinking, oh, 3 to 5, that's a lot. So let me just try to do at least one and work through that. And I don't do it on a regular basis, but just telling people how much you appreciate them. I'm a firm believer that when you have somebody's name cross your heart and your mind, that's something that for me, it's God and the Holy Spirit telling me is that you need to reach out. You need to tell them thank you because there's a need. Because every time I've done that, because every time somebody's done it to me, I needed it right then at that moment, and that gave me the fuel to keep going.
That's special stuff. And my friend Tom Langan mentioned something similar one day. He said he has his friend that is super great at connecting, or super great at, like, he said, I haven't been that great in response and, being there over the years. He said, but I have a friend who's excellent at it. And he said, how do you do it? And the friend said, as soon as that person's on my mind, I act then. And so I try to, and I like, you could say this is annoying, but I'm trying, like, whether if I see, I haven't talked to my friend Corey I haven't seen him in person for 10 years, but if I see a Volkswagen, because he rebuilds Volkswagens, if I see a post with a Volkswagen on it or something, I try to send it to Corey and let him know, hey man, I'm thinking about you, but here's this Volkswagen. How would you do it? So I 100%, and I would challenge myself to get better at it, because I think it is that important. We're all putting all these, imagine this. We all put all this stuff out into the world that we feel so proud of. And we want people to, like, man, it feels good. But the thing, I do not, I'm saddened that more people don't make that effort when they treat it as a one-way street, and just, oh, come on, this person just said that their kid got an A. And so I will say, a large part of Motivation Champs isn't about books and things like that. You'll see the groups. The groups are about, hey, if you ran a 5K, tell us about it. You ran a race, tell us about it. Your picture with you and your grandkids. If it makes you, so I mentioned John, like faith, family, fitness, freedom. For me, if I had pillars, it's sharing inspiration, positivity, and smiles. So in any way I can share inspiration, positivity, and smiles, that's my mission. That's the goal. How do I do that? Well, there's a million different ways, but it all boils down to, did this piece of content, did me going and helping somewhere, did us chatting today, did we share inspiration, positivity, and smiles? If that's accomplished, I made one more person. I wish I was a smile dealer, but I know a million people probably have that title. But if I really, at the end of the day, if one more person smiled, I would win. And back to, like, me and my dad hanging out on, down on Route 40 going through Maryland. Here's me and my dad, happy as can be. So I really, that's winning for me.
Yeah.
One more person smiling.
And again, if you got to rewind and listen to what Dom just shared, rewind it, listen to it again, because it's setting intention. And you said at the very beginning of the podcast of waking up with intention and waking up to have energy. We also have to make those decisions of, I want to make somebody smile today. And however it is, I know when I used to run a lot, my intention was, I'm going to smile and say good morning or whatever time of day it was to everybody that I passed. and you gotta set intention before you leave, because I just am naturally not that person that would say that. But it was always some people would look at you like you're a weirdo because you said good morning, and then other people would smile and say good morning back, and that may be the only person that they hear from that day, and that good morning could change in a positive way the whole trajectory of the rest of their day.
Now, I will tell you, I follow you so much that I've heard this story, and I started doing that on the trails. Like if I'm out running or on my bike, like, hey, like people probably think I'm nuts, Yeah. So because of you, now people are thinking that of me. And like, I'll be with my dad riding sometimes and doing the same thing. And I see him looking at me like, do you know them? Like, no, Dad, we're 30 miles from my house. I don't know this person, but
my kids say the same thing. Like, did you know that guy? I was like, no, I just thought I'd wave, or they waved and I wanted to wave back.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I got that from you. Thank you.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. See, look at that. You dealt a smile today. Not that I wasn't smiling already. But as we kind of wind this episode down, when you look at your career as a publisher, what has been one of the most rewarding thing? I know you can't pick, it's like picking your favorite child, but what's been the most rewarding about helping people tell their story?
For me, one of the things that I really enjoy. So I'll at this point, I'm pretty much most of the time I'm sitting down with every book and really digging into it. Even though I have editors, and some books come to you a lot, they are a lot more developed, and somebody will say, "Don't touch this," and it goes off to editors and things. But for me, where a passion of mine that makes me happy is when you can go into a book and say, "Yeah, but are you sure that there seems like there's more meat on that bone? There seems like you're telling a story there. You took me to the day of the event. You took me to the moment where your ex was hitting the top of the car, and then you went somewhere else. You took me to the moment where something was about to happen, and then you left, right? Because part of writing is cathartic. Part of writing is uncovering those wounds and sharing them, and how you went through something somebody else might be going through, and here's how I handled it. Here's what happened. Here was me then. Here's how I addressed it. Here's how I moved forward. So working with people that you can tell they went close to where they wanted to go, but they didn't go the whole way. They didn't tell the whole story. And then once they get in and start to tell that whole story and tell me about, you mentioned suicide, but what was it? Why? Why was it so dark? Or how did you feel that day? Or how did it? And then once the person can tell that story, I think they can connect with so many more people. And getting them to whatever that barrier is, getting them past the barrier so they're able to share that story and go and really welcome people in, because that person who could be feeling like them needs to know. What did you do when your ex was beating on the top of the car and the windows were starting to shatter? How terrified were you? And once you can get me to that point, and now, okay, and that's the moment where they had more strength than they've ever had, and chose and changed their whole life. And so those are the moments for me. And it could be sitting on a Zoom in my basement, knowing that author, they just got, yeah, that's awesome. And seeing that, and then they write something back, or I make a note and they write it back. And this is before it goes to the editors, and we're just working back and forth. And I'm like, wow, that's good. I didn't expect that. So I know we're both friends with Greg Weinberg. And so I'll mention Greg, because Greg took every opportunity like that and made it better and went deeper and said, like, hey, did you think about this? I'm like, oh, no, you thought about that. And he would take it farther and farther. And I think he wrote In Need of Heroes, just coming out. And the big mission of that is, what if you could be the hero that you always needed? And so all stories like that are what I love to see, that those authors turn that corner. Beautiful thing.
Yeah. And I can only imagine how you're also not just helping them write a book, but helping them process these moments in time of being able to describe and get that true raw emotion out. One, they're trying to make that connection with the reader, but if they can process that themselves, that's got to be such a huge healing moment. Because I know in writing my book, it wasn't deep from that perspective, but it gave me an opportunity to reflect and to think back and to go, you know what, there were these obstacles that I overcame and challenges, and this is how I did it. And so it's reminding me of, like Goggins says, is going back into the cookie jar of, yeah, I was really strong in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing, and I encourage any storyteller. So even if you're doing video, even if you want to take a walk and start sharing your story for the first time, if you could record that and get through that message, whatever the message is, and knowing that now you're comfortable sharing it, knowing that maybe you don't share the first post, maybe you record 5 times before you send it out. And so later on, first you post about it, then somebody comments, then somebody asks a question, and you have to be ready or know that you're all right within to deal with whatever comes next. So I think part of, like you said, working through that, I think you can do the same with video as well.
Yeah, no, Dom, thank you. I want to be respectful of your time, because we could go on probably another 2 hours and chat, and I've got more questions. So we'll have to do a part 2 at some point in the very near future. But well, before we get into that, what are some parting words that you'd like to leave the audience with today?
Okay, so I always take the opportunity. So when given, today I would just like to say, don't look away. What the heck is this guy talking about? Meaning, if you see somebody out there hurting in any way, don't look away. How you might not be able to do everything, but could you help them? Could you lift them up? Could you open the door? Could you give them a smile? It might be a different world where you could able to connect them with resources. You could maybe drive them to the store. Maybe you could pick up a woman's groceries for her, walk her across the street. I am just encouraging you in this world. Don't look away, because maybe you look away, maybe somebody else looks away, and maybe that person slips through the cracks. But if you're able to extend a hand in any way, go for it.
I love it. You might have to make a t-shirt. Don't look away.
Yeah.
That'll draw some attention.
With Quasimodo on the front of it.
Exactly. All right, Dom, how can people find and follow you in Motivation Champs?
I mentioned earlier a goal of sharing inspiration, positivity, and smiles 24/7. So across social media, look for Motivation Champs. You can go at Motivation Champs. I am trying to be, as a company, as a business, as a person, on all those platforms. So whether it's TikTok, whether it's YouTube, or whether it's going to a website, Motivation Champs, we will try to be there for you 24/7 with content that makes you think, makes you smile, and makes you believe there could be a better tomorrow.
That's awesome. And I'll get all the links from Dom of where he wants you to go and put those into the show notes if you so desire. But I know that everybody got something out of it, because I have a page of notes. So I appreciate the time that you spent with me today. And I know the audience did as well.
Thank you.
No problem. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Dom Damasky of Motivation Champs. Thanks for joining us on the Pathways to Greatness podcast. We hope that today's conversation inspired you to take steps towards your own greatness. Remember, every journey starts with a single step. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who might benefit. Actually, share it with 3 people that you might think it might benefit. Until next time, keep pursuing your passions and carving your own path to greatness. Take care.